we'll hear from our District 3 City Council candidates. On the end, we have John Marriott, Ted Terranoba, and Justin Vicory. Again, we'll start as they appear on the ballot, and then we'll rotate after that. So at this time, John Marriott, you have 2 minutes for opening remarks.
Thank you. My name is John Marriott, and I grew up in Arvada. I attended Sierra Elementary School, Oberon Junior High, and Pomona High School. I spent my summers playing Little League football and swimming at the Fisher Pool. In the winter, my sisters and I learned to ski in the North Jeffco ski program. After high school, my North Jeffco ski skills came in handy when I was able to buy the small ski shop I worked at. That was 30 years ago, and I have been running my business, Larson Ski and Sport, ever since. I've lived in Old Town for the last 25 years with my wife Angie and our 2 children, Jack and Sarah Jane. I've been active in our community. I've served a term on the Arvada Gold Line Advisory Committee, the committee that reviewed the International Property Maintenance Code, and I am the current chairman of the Arvada Board of Adjustment. I also serve as the chairman and the Congressional District 7 representative to the Colorado State Trails Committee. My 30 years in running a small business in our community have given me an appreciation for how tough it can be to succeed and how important it is that government help create a business climate where success is possible. I'm running for Arvada City Council District 3, and I'm hoping to bring my 30 years of business and volunteer experience to the Arvada City government. The next 4 years are going to bring great changes and opportunities to our community, and it is more important than ever that our elected representative be active, prepared, and engaged. I am that person for Arvada.
Thank you. Ted Terranoba, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Ted Terranoba. I've lived in Arvada for 45 years. I'm married to Judy for 19 years and have 2 adult children and several grandchildren who live in Arvada. I own Art Total Home Services since 1984. I served on the City Council from 1989 to 1993. I currently serve as the Vice President of the Arvada Fire Protection District Board of Directors. I also serve on the Board of Adjustments and have served on several committees with Mr. Marriott as well. The reason why I have decided to run for City Council is because I see the need for an experienced council member to be present as the representative for this district in these crucial times. As Mr. Marriott has pointed out, there are many crucial issues that are coming up and are going to need a steady hand to make sure that there's seamless transitions on these projects. I believe that my vast political experience as well as my knowledge of the community gives me the best chance to be the most effective representative for District 3. I have several hobbies. They include learning to speak Spanish, playing piano, ballroom dancing, and scuba diving. My passions are my life and politics. I would appreciate your consideration this November. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vicory, 2 minutes.
Thank you. So when I was thinking about this after our last candidate forum, I was really trying to think, what is the difference between the 3 candidates here, besides the size of our campaign signs? I think we all love Arvada, that's clear. They spend more time here than me, but ultimately our overall goal is to really make Arvada a better place. So when it comes down to it, I'm really not the reform candidate. I'm really the candidate that wants more of the same. I really like Arvada the way it is, the direction that it's going, and I'm really the candidate that will keep moving in that current direction and not try to change things for a way that we haven't seen before. The other big difference that I see is that I really have a trust in our government. I have a trust in the partners that play a vital part in our government. When I close my eyes and I think about stuff like the open space out west, the golf courses, the Arvada Center, 4th of July celebration, Harvest Festival, events in Old Town, the trails and parks in Arvada, those are the things that I really want to maintain in Arvada the way they have been and continue growing them into a great dynamic city. This comes about because we have partners such as the Apex, the Festivals Commission, AIDA, Aura, the police, the fire department, Old Town. These are the partners of our city, and they're really like friends. You may not always agree with them. When I sit around with my friends, we may disagree about which football team we like, which political party we like, which national issue we like, but at the end of the day, we still have those partners, we still have those friends, and that's what really makes a dynamic, rich, and growing city. I'm Justin Vicory, and I'm running for Arvada City Council, District 3.
Thank you. Mr. Terranoba, you have question number 1. City Council recently approved a public improvement fee for a redevelopment project. When do you think it is not appropriate to use a public improvement fee?
Well, it's not appropriate if the numbers don't work. That's obvious. You would think that we wouldn't even consider it if that was the case. But there's another time when it's not appropriate, and that's when the project is of such a magnitude that it creates such a controversy that you just move forward with it without getting complete buy-in of the community. I think that while the use of these public funds may be the state of the art, as it were, for cities and counties to get developments to be done, you still have to be concerned about the parochial issue of neighborhoods and their concerns about projects that are going to occur. And when you're going to have a project like the one that we just recently had come through, you've got to take the time and the effort to make sure that people believe that there's trust in the system. You got to have that in your city government. If anything I'm hearing out there when I'm talking to the voters, it's a feeling of disconnect with the city government. I think that in order to get that connect, we need to have people participate in these decisions of the magnitude that we just went through.
Thank you. Mr. Vicory, let me repeat the question again for you. City Council recently approved a public improvement fee for redevelopment projects. When do you think it's not appropriate to use a public improvement fee?
You know, of course, this is related to the triangle development, and really it comes down to whether or not, as Ted said, the numbers pan out. If the probability for financing the project comes about without a need for an improvement fee, then absolutely don't need it. If you need it, then you really need to strongly consider it. You know, anytime you bring in any company, you're always going to have a possibility of some type of backlash, a negative public stance. But from my experience, we haven't necessarily seen, I haven't seen quite the negativity towards the last public improvement project that passed through City Council. However, it is a double-edged sword when I look at it, and I really think about the use of these type of fees, because on the one hand, it's a bummer that we have to use our sales tax to entice businesses to come into a city. So that's really one of the reasons that I think moving towards a more dynamic, rich, and just overall great city that in the future will help us improve and attract development without the need for fees. But at the current time, the current market says if you don't use these fees, chances are you're going to lose out that development to other cities that surround you. So I hope that kind of answers the question and makes it a little clearer for the public.
Thank you. Mr. Marriott, the question once again. City Council recently approved a public improvement fee for a redevelopment project. When do you think it is not appropriate to use a public improvement fee?
Well, I think there's a number of times when it's not appropriate to use a public improvement fee. The idea behind a public improvement fee is to help urban renewal areas stand on an equal footing with greenfield or new development. And the object there is that it's much more expensive to redevelop an internal to the city area than it is to develop just a new shopping center on the edge of town in undeveloped land. And the public improvement fee should be used to achieve par between those two objectives. I think public improvement fees should not be the only way development happens. I think it's become very much that these days, not just in Arvada, but in many cities, where every project you see, no matter how big and no matter how small, has a public improvement fee associated with it. And I don't believe that that's the case. I think that should be the case. I think in a large redevelopment area like the Arvada Triangle, I think a public improvement fee is appropriate, but only when contained to the items that are truly public interest or public items, things such as storm drainage and curb and gutter, turn lanes, undergrounding of utilities. I do not believe public improvement fees should be used to make an economic case for a business that would not be economically successful on its own in the free market.
Thank you. Mr. Vicory, you're up first on the next question. It's a two-part question. Do you support higher density, including higher building heights in transit-oriented development project areas? I'm going to call them TOD after that, shorten it up. Do you support the current proposal for a larger parking structure between the Old Town Movie Theater and the Old Town Station platform?
Well, I'll address the second part of the question first, and resoundingly yes, I do like the parking proposal for Old Town. You know, I think that it's a great use of space when I look at it and I really think about what they're trying to achieve by maintaining a view, but still maximizing the amount of parking that's available, not only for RTD, but for also our own community, which is the Old Town community. That's where I have my business, and you know, a lot of businesses in Old Town are really concerned. It's actually quite the stir in Old Town a lot of times is parking. and for the city to really look and contemplate an ability to create parking and help alleviate not only the RTD requirements, but also the Old Town parking. I think it's a splendid design and a great plan. On the first part of the question, the higher density, you know, that's one that I definitely, higher density housing, I definitely I'm in favor of higher density housing for the reason that I think we need more affordable housing in some ways. I like the idea of micro apartments, stuff like that. And when it comes to heights, I think that's completely determined upon each individual design. You can't just say a blanket, I will not go above this height. I think that would be a fallacy on the part of any kind of decision maker to say, just as a blanket statement, we will not build above this height. We look at everything in a unique issue, and as long as it meets our ability to not obstruct any important views for anybody, as well as coincides with the design guidelines for the area and maintaining the unique pleasure of Old Town, I would absolutely be in favor of considering and looking at increased height limitations and different structures within Old Town. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Marriott, do you support higher density, including higher building heights in TOD project areas? And do you support the current proposal for a larger parking structure between the Old Town Movie Theater and the Old Town Station platform?
Well, I'll take the first part of the question first. And so I do support higher density, including building heights in the TOD project areas, but not without limits. I think we have two really good examples here in Arvada right now. I think the Arvada Ridge Station development and the new apartments there that are just north of the Target are a great example of how higher density combined with transit can make a very nice TOD area. I think these apartments have been done really well. They've got great amenities, and they're going to be really nice for a long time. And there's space for more of them near that station, and I absolutely support that. And the key component there is that this height and higher density fits into the area and the neighborhood. It's buffering other neighborhoods by shopping areas, industrial areas to the west, the Kipling Parkway thoroughfare, and it absolutely fits in this case. The other case we have at hand is the Park Place at Old Town development in Old Town. And I do support higher density housing within the confines or within the edges of Old Town, but only if it fits into the context of both Old Town and the neighborhoods around Old Town. Currently, the proposal at Park Place at Old Town is, I think, too big. It's too tall, it's too dense, and the city's had to make too many gyrations to make it fit into our area. So I do support higher heights, building heights and density, but only when it fits within the context of both the commercial area and Old Town. As far as a larger parking structure behind the movie theater and the Old Town Station platform, I think that's a very good use of ground that would be very difficult to use otherwise. I think it also provides probably the best option for people who are using that parking area in the train station, and so as long as we can afford it, I'm absolutely for it.
Thank you. Mr. Terranoba, once again, do you support higher density, including higher building heights in TOD project areas? And do you support the current proposal for a larger parking structure between the Old Town Movie Theater and the Old Town Station platform?
TOD projects can be pretty much anywhere along the transportation system. So to ask the question in regards to TODs is not specific enough in that, in this case, the TODs are specifically related to Old Town. And that's what makes it unique and special. And because of that, I would have a tendency to be reluctant to go for high density or higher buildings unless the compatibility can still be accomplished to the satisfaction of the people who care about the Old Town and the flavor of Old Town. Here again, inclusion. You can't make these kinds of decisions in a vacuum. Is high density a good idea? For some places, yes. Are higher buildings necessary? In some places, yes. Maybe not in these areas. So to blanketly say I support high density, no. Blanketly say I support higher buildings, no. To say I would reject any possibility of those would be the same answer, no. It would depend on the case and the compatibility issue. In regards to the issue of the parking garages, there's only one thing that concerns me about the parking garage proposals, and that is the grand view does not get disturbed. We call grand view because you see a grand view looking to the south. We do not want to in any way impede that view. If that means to have a larger structure, we're going to have to dig down so that the building height is lower, then that means we're going to have to factor that economic cost in that and come up with creative ways to find financing to pay for that type of a structure. But we do need to have parking structures down near Old Town for not only the transportation facilities, but also for the retailers for weekends and evenings. So the garages we need, high density and higher buildings, maybe not so much.
Thank you. Mr. Marriott, you're up first on this next question. Do you think the city should take a position on Amendment 66, and if so, what position should they take?
I think the city should take a position on Amendment 66. While this is a statewide issue, it obviously affects the city, and it affects the city greatly. And the position I think the city should take on it is I think the city should be opposed to it. I think the simple fact that half of the taxes collected in Jefferson County won't stay in Jefferson County is enough to oppose it right there. Other problem with Amendment 66 is the tax capacity of our citizens is getting close to being reached. The loading taxes onto our citizens to pay for services in other parts of the state is already done through the state portion of the sales tax and other taxes that we use. And so I think the city should take a position on it. I believe the city should be opposed to it, and I would encourage the city to do so.
Thank you. Mr. Terranova, do you think the city should take a position on Amendment 66, and if so, what position should they take?
Amendment 66 is about school funding, and while education is important to all of us regarding economic development and taxes and revenues and so on and so forth, it really is specific to school functions. And it is true that the majority of those funds are not going to go equally to our end of the neck of the woods. But whether or not the city should take a position on it or not, I think the case should be no, they should not. If they cannot take a position for it, that is, that there's something about it that the city wants to be accomplished for the good of the city and citizens of the city, then they should just simply stay out of it altogether and let the people make the decision on their own without any kind of influence from the city government. Now, you might think that, well, isn't education important to the city? And yes, it is, but the issue is bigger than that. It really is a financing issue. And again, it's not something I think that the city should take a position on at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Vicory, do you think the city should take a position on Amendment 66? And if so, what position should they take?
Thank you. You know, after reading the question, I put some thought into this. I actually don't believe that the city should be taking a position on a state amendment issue on school financing. It's pretty simple in my case. I don't see how the city should be the influencer of this type of an amendment, and I don't really see how me as just a representative of a district or just part of an overall council for a whole city could really entail what an entire city would want or not want for this. So regardless of my personal views on this, no, I do not believe the city should take a position on this amendment in particular.
Thank you. Next question. It's a bit of a long one. Mr. Terranova, there is a possibility that there will be a statewide sales tax increase of 0.7% to be used for transportation and transit on the ballot for 2014. Do you think the city should take a position on it? And if so, what position should they take?
Now we're talking about something that does affect the city and its citizens. Transportation systems are critical for economic development. So therefore, if you want to have economic development that's going to increase the tax base, which is going to give the city the funds to provide services and goods to the citizens without having to raise their taxes, then you got to have good transportation systems. So for that reason, I would say the city should take a position and they should encourage people to vote yes. And here again, let's remember, folks, this is a vote of the people, so really it's the people's decision, so the city may just make a recommendation. But in this case, the recommendation would be based on the overall benefit to the citizens ultimately in the long run if the transportation systems were built out throughout the state.
Thank you. Mr. Vicory, there is a possibility that there will be a statewide sales tax increase of 0.7% to be used for transportation and transit on the ballot for 2014. Do you think the city should take a position, and if so, what position should they take?
Again, on this one, I'm going to kind of hold true to what I said before, is that I don't think the city should be the influencer of this. You know, the reality is that we've already seen the allocation of funds to our area through the RTD Gold Line. So I don't know how much of it would really help us necessarily and specific to Arvada. I agree that the tax burden has already been kind of starting to hit its limitations as far as the public is concerned, at least as far as me as a citizen is concerned. So with that, I have my own personal views, but again, I don't think the city should take a position as an influencer on this specific issue.
Thank you. And Mr. Marriott, there is a possibility that there will be a statewide sales tax increase of 0.7% to be used for transportation and transit on the ballot for 2014. Do you think the city should take a position, and if so, what should they take?
Well, this again affects the city and the citizens of the city greatly. And so I think the city should take a position on it. And I think the city should take the position that they're opposed to this. The reason why is user fees through existing gas taxes are the right way to fund roads and transit, not through sales tax. The net sales tax in Arvada already approaches 8%. Adding more onto that puts us in a less competitive position, not only within the metro area, but also within the businesses across the country. This is just the wrong way to fund roads and transit and transportation. And it does affect the city dramatically because the city will lose that capacity in the future to have more revenue if they need it. And I'm not for that either at this point, but I believe using up the taxing capacity of our citizens in this manner is absolutely not the right way to go, and not in favor of a ballot initiative like that. And I think the city should be opposed to it too because of their own vested interest.
Thank you. Mr. Vicory, you're up first. Do you support the completion of the Beltway?
Thank you. Yes, actually, I do support the completion of the Beltway. As I said at the candidate forum earlier this month, that is with hesitancy. The reason I have hesitancy is when I look at what happened at C-470, and that was supposed to be kind of a borderline for the south part of Denver, boy, it just kind of sprawled right over. And to me, that's my biggest concern. When I go back to the opening remarks I said, and I think about the open spaces out west, I'm sincere in that. I think that that's an important aspect of what makes Arvada great. If you create a beltway, obviously that makes transportation easier. When transportation is easier, people start to develop. When development happens, it creates more development. So there's a real interesting and responsible way to do this, but I do think the beltway is an important part of the overall completion of the entire circle for the Denver metro area. And you know, it's an important part for Arvada to take part in that as well. So in essence, yes, I am in support of the beltway. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marriott, do you support the completion of the Beltway?
I do support the completion of the Beltway with a couple of caveats. I believe that completing the Beltway will absolutely help the traffic issues within Arvada and within our area, and I think we always need to be looking at that. And the longer it takes for that to happen, the worse our traffic on our major arterials as well as our neighborhood streets gets. And I think part of our job with the city of Arvada is to protect our residents and neighborhoods from these type of effects. And I view the Beltway as having a positive effect on that. I don't think Arvada should pay for the Beltway in its entirety. I think this to me is a CDOT project. It's a regional project and shouldn't be just an Arvada project. So provided it can be done in an economically feasible way, yes, I am in support of the Beltway.
Mr. Terranoba, do you support the completion of the Beltway?
Is this a one-answer question like it was the last time? One question, one word answer. Anyway, listen, I think we all know that we're all in favor of, yes, I'm in favor of the Beltway for a few reasons. The traffic relief, congestion relief, and I'll be honest, mostly because it's going to spearhead and encourage the completion of the development out to the northwest that the city's trying to get accomplished at the Candelas project. People don't seem to realize that these developments like that, when they're completed, will generate so much revenue that our services and goods will be provided for us in such a way that people just will not have to have their taxes raised. It's just the whole idea behind this is to make sure that we have a tax base that can support the needs of our citizens without having to ask them for more money through tax raises or through property taxes. So the Beltway needs to be done, just has to be done.
Thank you. In closing remarks, we'll start with Mr. Marriott. You have 1 minute for closing remarks.
Thank you. Well, thanks everybody for watching tonight. The next 4 years are going to bring great changes and opportunities to Arvada. As recent events have shown, the same actions by the same people may not lead us to the best outcomes. In this election, the voters have a chance to change that by voting for a city council candidate that has an outsider's view and a fresh perspective on issues. I am that candidate. My 30 years in running a small business in our community and the fact that I reside in the epicenter of many of these changes gives me the experience and passion to make the best of the opportunities before us while protecting our neighborhoods and way of life as much as possible. This election gives you, the voters, a chance to shape the future of our city. I hope I can serve as your representative.
Thank you. Mr. Terranova, you have 1 minute for closing remarks.
Yes, thank you for watching tonight, and thank you for being engaged in your city government. I'm asking you tonight to give strong consideration to voting for me for your council representative for District 3. I think that for anybody who looks at the 3 candidates here, it should be clear that as it relates to experience, that clearly I have more experience than my 2 fellow candidates, which clearly would make me the most ready to take the position and hit the ground running. I too am an outsider. I've not been involved in city government for 20 years, but I was there 20 years ago and did serve on council and know what it means to serve on council. I remember thinking when I ran for council the first time of all the things I was going to do, and found out it took me about a year to figure out what I could and could not do. That's why it's important to have somebody there who knows what they can do and get started on it right away. I would appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Vicory, you have 1 minute for closing remarks.
Thank you. Thank you again for watching. I'll echo those remarks. You know, contrary to popular belief, you know, I think all 3 of us do have adequate experience and the knowledge to be able to adequately and more than adequately perform the jobs as city council member for Arvada District 3. You know, I'm more of the same. I know people always hate that, but to me, that's just more of the awesome that is Arvada. Arvada is a great place, and I want to continue making it great. And to me, that's just being more of the same as what we've been continuing to do. I'm not the reform candidate. My past experience within Arvada, I've spent 5 years with historical Old Town Arvada. I've brought event after event to Old Town, helped committees within the Old Town area. I'm part of the Visitor Center Advisory Committee, and I'm also the president of the Original Shopping Districts, which represents historic shopping districts throughout the metro area. So I am well in tune with the partners that do make up Arvada, and I do think that I would make a great council member for you, and I appreciate the opportunity to, you know, garner your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's it for candidates from District 3. Up next, we'll hear from our city council candidates from District 1. Thank you.